Hi, Amanda from Guardian Ones here, and in this brief video, I want to talk to you a little bit about the astral realm versus higher dimensions and what the human body and trauma have to do with developing spiritual discernment or the lack thereof. So, first of all, this is oversimplifying things, but if you can picture different dimensions, different realms, different frequencies, like stations on an old school radio dial, I'm picturing those, the ones where you see the little screen and there's a little red line, and as you move the dial, it'll move through all the different stations. And when you hit on one, it'll become really clear. And then sometimes if you're just slightly off, you'll hear something coming out of the radio, but it's fuzzy or you can't quite make it out. And then sometimes even you can get in between two different stations and be hearing a couple different stations at the same time. The way that we navigate consciousness and creation between the physical, the material world, and then all of the other unseen layers of reality and creation, it's kind of like that, the radio dial. So the stations can kind of cross over and ultimately, that benefits us, right? Where we are living in physical bodies in a material realm, and yet we can tune in to stations that are not physical, that are unseen, but we can, pick up our physical station and then tune into those. So, first of all, I want to give the disclaimer that I am not a spiritual teacher. I'm just a person that's been doing energy work, starting with healing work, starting with animals, and then somehow, beyond my control, it kind of evolved and distilled down to doing clearing work, clearing bodies, the energetic anatomy of people, animals, homes, land, things like that. So a lot of what I'm telling you, I haven't learned from other people or books or anything like that. I've learned from a decade of doing this kind of work, seeing repeating patterns, seeing what gets results and what doesn't. So I have learned from other people, and I try to be clear when I'm speaking about other people's teachings. But for the most part, what I'm speaking from is just experience. You don't have to take this as capital T truth. I just wanted to share some of these things for you to ponder. So back to the radio dial. If we in the material form are on this station here, one of the stations that's closest to our physical station is what a lot of people will call the astral layer, the spirit realm, the other world. We call it the realm of deception, although I really have come to think over the years that it is more accurate to call it the layer of or the realm of information. But it is a very noisy station. There's a lot going on. There's a cacophony of stuff going on. Some of it you could say is source aligned, which would be meaning aligning with truth, aligning with creation, with life-giving um, vibration, frequency, the state of being of life-giving and creation. There's a lot of that in this astral realm, this deceptive realm. There's also a lot of not that, not life-giving, extractive, harvesting, taking from other, redirecting. There's a lot of that going on. So what ends up happening is because it's a realm that's pretty close to the human body, ancient spiritual practices a lot of the time would focus on kind of transcending the human body, human needs, hunger, thirst, sexual desire, things like that, transcending that. So you're almost like skipping through the astral layer to try to get to the higher dimensions where it's a lot cleaner. The messages are a lot clearer. That level of awareness is not muddied up so much by other noise, other interference. It's almost like the higher on the radio dial that you go, the more clear the station is. And that's when you can hear truly like your own higher self, your own inner guidance as aligned with that true source state. There are also other forms of consciousness. They often get called, guides, guardians, angels, things like that, that are also merged with our higher aspects that are higher up on the radio dial, closer to that pure life-giving creation state of being, although still differentiated. And And, there were spiritual practices that would kind of take you out of the corporeal experience, the human body and mentality, so you could kind of skip that astral layer and make it up here. There are forms of consciousness in that astral layer, beings, you could call them, that can help you out. They can even help you sometimes reach the higher stations. But it's important to keep in mind that it's very difficult to tune into the higher stations and really fully inhabit a human body and experience and not get your wires crossed sometimes, or the messages crossed, or to be infringed upon. And that's where a lot of our clearing work has come in, is helping individuals who, they're here in the physical, they're trying to reach over here, higher information, and sometimes you get trickles of that make it down to the astral of truth and higher information and more aligned with source. But then people kind of just get stuck in this layer. So sometimes this can happen. I mean, really, it can happen in a myriad of ways. But one of the primary things, and this is why I've always harped over and over again, and I keep finding confirmation about this, about doing trauma nervous system type work for yourself, especially if you're someone who's drawn to spiritual teachings and practices, because there is a direct correlation with, and it's especially happening now. I'm not saying throughout all of time it's been this way, but now on Earth, we are bringing more of this pure creation, life-giving state of being through the physical body. So it's almost like all of these higher stations are getting condensed and pushing through the physical body. It's an evolution. And people talk about this in different ways. I'm certainly not the only one talking about this. I'm not talking about it for myself from listening to anyone else, but I've been experiencing this over the last few years. There was a really big acceleration of this process in 2021. So what happened at that time in 2021 is that the astral realm, it's almost like the astral realm, as these higher stations are moving through this realm of deception, it just gets louder and more confusing and more opportunistic. So a lot of people that were finding Guardian One's work were going down the route, well-intentioned, seeking access to the higher realm, seeking a higher part of themselves, seeking something bigger than themselves. You could say it's God, the universe, however different people categorize it. And they're kind of getting stuck in this right here in the little astral layer, because the experiences in this area can be amazing. I've had a lot of experiences in the spirit world, other world, astral layer that are mind-blowing. Overall, if I really look back, did they really improve my overall well-being? In the long run, not necessarily. And for some, they get pulled down rabbit holes of despair, sometimes even psychosis, a lot of astral infringements. And it's because, in general, a lot of us have not been educated from the time we were little about how all of this works, how to take care of yourself, what energetic hygiene even means, what energetic awareness even is. And so there's a lot of value in learning about that, how this works, energetic hygiene practices, how to care for not only your body and field, but your home space, anywhere that you go. There's value in that. And there are a lot of intact cultures that have passed down specific tools around that. But the problem is that as we continue to evolve, not all of those tools work in all situations. You have to remember that wherever your ancestors were from, whatever practices they had were specific to working with the astral layer, working with the spirit world on that land during that time. So maybe burning sage worked on that land at that time with those spirits that were present. Maybe offering cornmeal worked on that land at that time with those people and their generations of relationships with the other world in that region. But as globalization happened, colonization happened, everything spread everywhere. A lot of the practices that people have been taught and that have been passed down in order to protect themselves, they're no longer relevant in all cases at all times. And so having a general awareness and being open to getting more guidance about how to protect yourself. And it's not even just about protecting yourself. Guardianship is also about health and just overall well-being, and thriving and being able to have an output, a creative flow. Um, so there's a lot more to it than just simply protecting yourself. But there's a key element here. And the key element is around spiritual discernment. And it's really interesting that the human body, so the ancient practices, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were transcending the body to reach these higher stations up here, right? So now what's happened is that as this evolution is happening, the task that we all have, whether we like it or not, is to be able to have a spiritual experience while in a human body and to not separate the two, because there's been both sides of the pendulum, right? Of like transcending your humanness to reach high levels of spirituality. And then there's been like a backlash, especially in kind of modern Western society, of we don't even believe anything over here. It's all about the material, the body, nothing else matters. Now it's like, this is what's happening. Both of these, spirit through the body. It's not one or the other anymore. And this is so interesting to me, and I found this over the years, as my work was starting to be kind of directed towards clearing, not by my choice or design, but that's just kind of organically how it went. I was clearing people and not wanting to promote some kind of dependency on me because I don't have skills or abilities that are just, some God-given gift that no one else could ever have, right? Like I have tools, I have some skills, I have some specialties, but so do you, so does everybody, right? And so I didn't want to foster this idea of like, oh yeah, there's all these scary infringements out there that can affect your life, affect your health, your well-being, your finances, every aspect of life. And if they mess with you, you just come to me and I'll clear them off of you for the rest of your life. I did not want to go that route. And when Tibor, my right-hand man in clearing work, came to work with me, he was the same. And you guys will definitely meet him in future videos. I'm roping him into it. But uh, basically, I asked the question like, okay, so if energetic hygiene and clearing are practices that can help people, how can I actually help people empower themselves instead of having to always come to me? And what is causing this? Like, what causes us to pick up all these things? Because I certainly have had those types of things my entire life. I've had horrific astral attacks from the time I was a really small child in the form of like full on lived with my physical eyeballs, night terrors, and getting my body beat up at night, just all kinds of weird astral stuff. And when I had started to do this work for myself is when I finally got some peace. And so I know that this works. But in my mind, I'm like, all right, what is the root cause though? I'm a root cause kind of person, not a let's slap a band-aid on it kind of person in general. So by asking that question, by being curious, the answer came to me over time of like, it's trauma. It's our human trauma and our collective earth trauma. That is how these infringements, these things attach to us, like Velcro in the Body Wisdom Academy. We talk about having Velcro in your system. It really truly is like that. But to get specific, if we're talking biology of trauma, it's one of the main, you could say, symptoms of trauma, which then begets more trauma on a biological level, is the lack of interoception. So interoception is the messages that travel from your body via the nervous system to your brain, not the other way around. It's your body saying, "Hey, brain, this is what's going on here." Right? Interoception. Brain, I just put my hand on a hot stove, and then the brain's like, ah, danger, and then, sends a signal back down to remove your hand. But that first signal comes from the hand, right? That's interoception. And when you have had many, many moments, and this starts in utero, it starts with exposure to toxins, even. There's chemical trauma. Anytime your nervous system has become overwhelmed, put into a freeze state, that changes how your mitochondria function. It changes you on a cellular level and it affects your interoception. So it can change, it can dull, it can completely cut off in some cases the ability of your body to speak to your brain. And what's interesting about that is your body is a tool of spiritual discernment. Your mind, not so much. It's like an assistant. But if you are that disconnected, your body and your mind, if your body is not sending all of the signals, or if it's sending trigger signals all the time, then when you start to learn about spiritual things, or when you even watch a video like this, or you listen to a teacher, or you attend a ceremony, when there is not good communication between your body and brain, that's when you can lack discernment about what it is that's going on. Because our bodies are tools of source discernment, of life, of that which gives life. So our bodies are always trying naturally, given the right circumstances, to move towards life, towards health, towards creation. And when those messages get cut off, we don't have the ability to feel that or to feel the opposite. So trauma does two things. It dulls the messages completely so that you're using your mind. Actually, trauma does three things. So it dulls the messages completely so that you're trying to use your mind as a tool of spiritual discernment, your mind to navigate the astral realms. Like, oh, cool, this, angel is talking to me and blah, 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 blah. That can lead you down the path of spiritual delusion. Literally, all you got to do is watch Aubrey Marcus talk for 15 minutes and you will see the effects of extreme spiritual delusion. And that guy is having high level spiritual experiences through all the psychedelics, the heavy duty ceremony, and all that. And all that can be really cool. It's entertaining, but it starts to lead you down this path of being detached from this layer of reality, which is key. The material world is key to all of creation. We can't dismiss it or overlook it, or, say that it's not important. So when this happens, the lack of interoception, there's that. The second thing that trauma will do is that it will trigger interoception that is a little bit inaccurate, right? So, and we've all had that happen, just triggering in everyday life, where someone says one thing and all of a sudden you are in a high stress response. And if you can back away and really look at it, you're like, oh, this incident isn't even the problem. It's reminding me of when I was 5 and this happened. So that's almost, it's not a bad message. It's not a wrong message. It's a message of saying, hey, there's this thing back from when you were 5 that's still holding you back here. So it is your body communicating to you clearly, but you can interpret that incorrectly and say, this situation right now is dangerous, right? So that's the second way that trauma can kind of waylay your discernment. And what was the third way? Oh man, there was one more. Oh, on the opposite. If you lack good interoception in your body, you can have, let's say, like a super high, kind of out in the cosmos, really amazing, over the top astral experience, spirit world experience that can actually send pleasurable signals through your body, when in fact that energy you're connecting with might be deceptive or siphoning in nature, and you might not be able to feel it because the layers, the more overt physical reactions we have, like a trigger or even like extreme pleasure, that's a different station on the dial, really, than source. Like tuning into the feeling of source of life giving is a little bit more subtle, and even what's anti-source. So what I've learned myself over the years, sometimes the hard way, is even when I would get a really strong no, like, no, that's not source aligned, that's not that's not lining up. What was happening was I might have even been picking up on some little grain of truth there, but I was also getting triggered in that moment and then interpreting that as I got to get away from this person, blah, 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 blah. Like then your mind jumps on boards and says, let me help explain what all these sensations are about. That person is inhabited by a demon and you need to get away from them. That may or may not be true. You might be getting triggered in that moment. So one of the first ways, simple yet not easy, to start to develop true and deep spiritual discernment is by increasing interoception in the body. There's a caveat to that. Anytime we try to increase interoception in the body and we push too hard and too fast, we put our nervous systems over the limit of the stress response, fight or flight, into the freeze response. And you don't want to do that. Again, that goes back to where your mitochondria change how they function. Your biology changes and creates a new pattern, a dysfunctional pattern. You could say almost more maladaptive would be a better way to put it. So you want to do things that help put you in your body more body awareness, building the ability to give signals of safety to your body in short, gentle, drip by drip ways. You don't want to hammer through interoception because then you max out that stress capacity again, put yourself into freeze. These don't just have biological implications, emotional, mental, they have spiritual implications. All of this is connected. So I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to end there. I hope that this explained something for you, and I'll be posting more of these videos, these Guardian talks. So hopefully see you soon. Bye.